any like internet business guru would say this is a terrible idea. Everybody's kind of copying Hormozy model or whatever. Like they're all that means that everybody can like find their thing. Love
That's
it or
right.
hate it, you're gonna get to know who you are, what you're all about through your content, especially if it's you. I've had, a couple failures, a couple big failed business experiences. Should I just go back and get a real job? Should I go back to corporate life? And I feel like a lot of people will have failed businesses but move on to something successful. And it was kind of this eye-opening experience for me of like, when I was like, how do people do this?
Welcome back to another episode of Raspberry Lemonade. We have an amazing guest, as always. On this show, we always have amazing guests. Welcome to the show. Was it Matt Brunk?
Matt Brunk, yeah.
Cool. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Yeah, I'm in the new studio here. Yeah, it's pretty fresh. I'm liking it. So yeah,
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for making the drive.
Yeah.
When we were on the phone, you said like you're based out of the OC. I'm like, well, OC could be anywhere,
Right? Exactly.
It could be like very close to the 91 or not.
Yes.
And so I was like, well, hopefully we could do in person.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
But we're here to talk about you today, man.
Sweet.
What is it that you do exactly?
Yeah. Well, I have been in media content production world for many years now. Right now, I am running my own business and serving clients in kind of a couple different veins. I'm kind of doing the thing that any like internet business guru would say this is a terrible idea, but I'm kind of working like on two businesses at the same time. But they very similar. It's really based on kind of different threads and ultimately it's because it's just what I wanted to do. I liked doing both of these things, so started doing them both. But one is I have a business called Training Simplified, and we provide digital learning content, culture stories, and support for training, learning, and development for restaurants and retail establishments. And my partner in that, my business partner, he's a training and development, learning and development guru. He knows all of like the competencies, learning and development stuff, and I'm more on like the media production side. So we've teamed up, and we work with big brands, small brands, medium brands in that restaurant retail space to really create any media or content that speaks to their employee. So
Gotcha.
Anything from culture stories about for their onboarding, like when someone comes to work at a new restaurant company, they take their onboarding training and they learn about the culture and they sort of get introduced to what it's like to work there and what will make them successful there. We create that content for the brand. We also have off-the-shelf content, meaning things like harassment, discrimination training, but also hospitality training, food safety training that people can license from us as well. So It's really content focused, but it's content for employees in the restaurant retail space. But I also I like that and I love doing that, but that was sort of this national across the country business where we're on Zoom. Sometimes we're traveling and going in person. We're doing shoots in person, but I really wanted to work with people face to face, and I wanted something where I could make a little bit more immediate impact. So a couple years ago, I launched a program called Grow on Camera, specifically working with business owners who want to create a volume of media and content online, creating direct-to-camera content. And so, I always like to say I'm trying to help people who want to talk to a camera. I really like, doing direct-to-camera content. I've worked with hundreds of non-actors, helping them be better at being on camera and improving their on-camera presence and being more engaging on camera. And so that's really what it was kind of birthed out of, was people who know that they need to be talking to a camera as part of their business, creating direct-to-camera authority content. I have a program where I help them dial in what they're going to say. I help them implement some systems to produce a ton of content, and I then actually help them create the content itself, so that we can help them put out a ton of content for their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually how I ran into your page.
Yeah.
Is this guy just walking on my, on my feed, and he's just walking and talking and I'm like, oh, let's see what this guy's saying, what he's talking about. So obviously it works, for people out there who are on the fence of should I actually get into creating content? Or maybe they have these limited beliefs of it's too saturated now, or it's whatever. What would you say to someone who's thinking that way right now?
First of all, I understand why someone would say it's too saturated. It feels that way, right? It feels like every time you open up your feed or any of these social media platforms, it's just like, sometimes it just feels like the same stuff that you're seeing. Everybody's kind of copying, I don't know, Hormozy model or whatever. Like they're all
the talking head.
Yeah, everyone, it feels like everyone's kind of doing the same stuff. But what I love though is that means that everybody can like find their thing. Like,
what do you mean by that?
That means that if you are, somebody who has a business or is providing a service that is very, very specific, you're selling, dog collars that are for pugs specific, that are inspired by pugs, and like you can create content around that and you can talk about that. Maybe direct to camera content isn't for you if that's your thing. Maybe that's it's more about showing your product, but you can still make content about your product, and you will find an audience, like, because it's so specific, it's so niche. Everybody can like have something very specific that they can talk about and find somebody who's interested in hearing about that.
100%.
And ultimately it's also just at the heart of it, it's also just kind of table stakes to have a social media presence. Even if you're not like a guru and putting out a ton of content, people just have a basic expectation now that they'll go and get to know you on your social media content. Love it or hate it, right? We all kind of, at least I have a love-hate relationship with social media, but that's where people will get to know you versus like your website. Like they're going to get to know who you are, what you're all about through your content, especially if it's you talking to the camera in your content.
Exactly. Yeah, because they see your face. Now they hear your voice. If you ever hop on a call or Zoom, like you're that much more familiar to them at that point, and there's a better chance that they'll actually become a client.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So tell me a little more about Grow on Camera.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned where that came from. Is that a fairly recent, company that you've been working on, or?
Yeah. So really, that's only the last couple of years, and it was something that I wanted to work with people in Orange County, and it's kind of evolved here and there. I've worked with people, remotely. Worked with people where we're not providing production support and just providing coaching. We're also kind of in the process of launching an online community, but not quite there yet.
Do it.
Yeah, I know. We need to do it. I really want to, because there's a lot of support around doing that.
Yeah.
But so many people I talk to, they can't afford like a full-fledged program. You know what I mean? Like to join like a program where they're getting coaching, where they're getting accountability, system support, and actually we're editing and producing content for them. It's pricey. It's expensive, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are in the place that we're kind of speaking to in terms of like, are you afraid to get on camera? Do you need to overcome your fear of getting camera? They tend to be more beginner to intermediate. So they maybe don't need a full-fledged production support. They just need some accountability. They need some community. They need some feedback.
Maybe basic best practices for lighting, things like that.
Basic best practices. But I really feel like that community and that feedback is powerful, because a lot of the direct camera stuff is about the mental game around like, oh, I feel stupid, or I'm going to look dumb, or I don't like the way this comes across. I don't feel confident. So having a community for that is really important, I think. Yeah. So that's in the works, but really it was about, working with people locally that I wanted to meet and also just support their business. And it's kind of evolved to different avenues, but we've helped people build out like YouTube channels. I'm a big believer in, if you have a business, you should have a YouTube channel. So helping people kind of build it out from scratch and just building out that digital presence. I think that nothing quite gives you a digital presence, digital real estate like a YouTube channel does.
Especially nowadays. Yeah. Recently, I don't remember where I heard it, but YouTube is like the second most used search engine right now. Yeah. Which makes sense why Google acquired them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And especially if you have something super niche, I think these are the places where you want to go to start creating this content for that community, because the community is out there. It's just you guys got to find each other.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to take the first step by making that content for that community.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Right on, man. So thank you for, explaining a little bit about what you do, kind of where the company came from and all that. Um, let's get into more personal side, get to know Matt little, more. Uh, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? Have you always been in SoCal?
I have not always been in SoCal. So I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, middle of the country, directly in the middle, heart of America. Grew up there, and my family still lives there, and even went to college in Wichita State. Which, if you growing up there, I was like, oh, I would never go to college here, but I ended up staying for a variety of reasons. And then found my way to Colorado right after college, and was in Denver for many, many years. But then I made the move from Denver to Orange County because I worked for Chipotle in the corporate office. I was head of media and production and content development there. And our corporate offices moved from Denver to Newport Beach. So I took the job. It made sense, I was just kind of ready for a change. My family was ready for a change. And so we decided to kind of just embrace the adventure of it and move from Denver to Orange County, with that kind of corporate move.
Yeah.
And that's how we found ourselves in Orange County.
So that's how you came out here.
Yeah.
Nice. So you have family. You got kids?
I do. I have 3 kids. I have twin 13-year-old girls and an 11-year-old boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Getting into those teen years very, very soon.
It's wild. Yes. 13-year-old girls is wild, I will say. Yeah.
Man. Well, okay, right on. So that's cool how life kind of takes you to different places, and you took that chance, and that opportunity.
Yeah.
How would you say it's compared to, where you were living to out here in SoCal?
Yeah. I loved Denver. I saw Denver change from kind of a smaller city to kind of this bustling city in the time that I lived there. It really just grew and developed. And I loved it, and I still do. We lived in the city, so Orange County has felt very suburban to me. But it's also
much quieter.
Yeah. And anytime I'm complain, I'm what am I complaining about? It's so nice and it's beautiful. And I do I think it was a good move for my kids, maybe to get out of the city, especially kind of pre-COVID, and then to be in a great school system, but also just to be in kind of a beautiful place to live where I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for them out here.
Oh yeah, as they grow up, especially. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was a good move. It's definitely, you can't have everything, so it's hard to be sometimes I'm it would have been so great to still be in Colorado, but I don't mind being here either. It's great.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to a little bit about your upbringing. What was little Matt like?
What was little Matt like?
Yeah.
Oh man, we're going deep.
We like to do that on this show.
Yeah. I, was kind of, I guess the class clown. Which gets you in trouble. It's funny because I feel it's easy for me to compare it to my son right now, who's 11, who I feel he spends a decent amount of time in the principal's office. But my thing is always with him, I'm it's hey, he means well. He's not a bad kid. he's rambunctious.
He's curious.
Yes, he's rambunctious and maybe a little rowdy. And maybe, we'll do anything for a laugh.
You're I understand.
I get it. And, and also, well, it's funny. Well, I guess I'll just keep with seeing what I see in my kids. That was what little Matt was like. But my daughter also, her and I have an affinity for, we only follow rules that make sense. And, they're
kind of challenges the status quo sometimes.
Yeah. And maybe that's part of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Maybe you kind of have to have that a little bit in you. But, I remember one time we were at this home, and she was very young, and she started to climb up these shelves that were built into the walls. And her mom said to her, "Hey, you can't do that." And her response is, "Well, yeah, I can." And she just kept climbing. And I was like, I hope that helps you understand me a little bit better, because The truth is that she could. The truth
Like,
was
it's physically possible.
Yeah, like actually you can.
Yeah.
But we're saying like, hey, social norms and
maybe safety,
social norms, and my own preference and my desire for what I want you to do is I don't want you to do that.
Right.
But if someone says like, hey, you can't do something, I'm like, well, what do you
watch me?
Yeah, you can. But it's like, so it's been an exercise in learning like, well, what people really mean is like, hey, that makes me uncomfortable, and it's about relationship and not being challenged,
right.
which I've had to learn in my life.
That's funny. Would you say you still have that in you, or like does that still come out from time to time?
Totally. Just the idea of like, oh, I'm not going to do this because someone wants me to do it, which is just like childish, right? But being able to like learn to like recognize that in yourself and kind of question like, what is that making me feel?
Yeah.
Why am I responding like that is huge, is being able to learn that about yourself and being able to manage it in the moment. So.
Yeah. How do you feel that specific trait has helped you in your business?
I think that, it's definitely creates a little bit of, I guess, tenacity, a little bit of like, I'm going to stick with this maybe too long. I've definitely, in the time that my post-corporate world, I've had, a couple failures, a couple big failed business experiences. And, I've definitely questioned, like, should I just go back and get a real job? Should I go back to corporate life? But I haven't yet. So,
yeah.
So maybe it's kind of stick with it and try something new and kind of keep going. Yeah, a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to ask that question too, because I think, or at least this is kind of I do a lot of introspection, and I see a lot of my younger self in me today.
Yeah.
And I think as I come closer to kind of fulfilling that kid's dreams and kind of his natural skills and things like that, life has gotten a lot easier, and business has started to expand because of that. And so that's why I like to ask that question, because I do think whether you like it or not, like your childhood, your upbringing does sculpt, mold, shape you to at least to a certain extent, right, into your adulthood. You're able to modify and make changes, I believe, change, maybe beliefs that were stopping you from going, things like that. That's what as adults, like, that's our job to do that for ourselves. But I think the essence of ourselves, it stems from when we were kids.
Yeah.
And so that's where that question kind of comes from.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I agree with that. It's almost like, I think of it as like language, like you have your native language,
right?
And you always kind of interpret the world through that language. You could move to another country and you could become immersed in a new language and adopt that language, but you still kind of always interpret the world through your native tongue.
Yeah.
And you can learn new ways of understanding the world around you, which is what a new language is. But you're really always going to see things through that native tongue and interpret things through that, kind of no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on, man. We got deep. I like it.
What do you call? So you said that you're introspective, that you have this model. What if you had to call it something, what would you call it? Is it like a modality, like a something that you've studied?
I get lost in my deep thoughts sometimes.
Okay.
Those shower thoughts.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the few connections that I've made, at least for myself, is things have gone quote unquote easier.
Yeah.
When I stick to like the essence of who I was as a kid.
Yeah.
So I'm in my zone of genius when I'm talking to people, for example. Like, I've loved talking to people since I learned to talk, really, to the point where my parents always remind me from time to time, like, yeah, when you were like 5, you were sitting at the adult table and asking them questions, having full-on conversations, like if you were an adult.
Yeah.
So I've always had that inside of me, and this is kind of a expression of this podcast.
Yeah.
And that's just one example.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I don't really study like psychology, things like that. I find it interesting, and I definitely like have looked into like my personality type, and I'm like, wow, I could definitely see me fitting a lot of these things. But I think the more we get to know ourselves, the better it is for ourselves, obviously, first and foremost, but also now we know how we can help others and how others can help us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But right on, man, let's get into the sour story now.
The sour story.
Which, I mean, I don't know. Do you have one, 2, 3? I'm sure you have many.
What do you mean?
So the sour story of the show is you share a moment or experience that maybe wasn't that great.
Yeah.
You know, especially maybe on the business side, we try to stick to. Some people open up on the personal side at this point. But what's one of those stories that you'd like to share with the audience that you feel they would benefit from?
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely, first thing that comes to mind is a fairly recent, in the last 2 years, you know, I guess I would say I had a failed business, in terms of, it was an Airbnb property. It was a rental investment property, that I was really excited about, that I kind of got caught up in the drama of it, you know, the feel of I had some long-term real estate investment holdings, and I just decided I wanted to get into the short-term rental game. I wanted to try it. I kind of saw and I feel like I did my due diligence. I studied, I talked to people, I got into a group. I kind of did what I felt like was the right steps. But very long story short, I think I bought wrong.
Oh no! And that's the first rule, right?
That's the first rule, right?
You make the profit in the buy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it just and then the monthly expenses were way higher than I estimated. Ended up being extremely higher than I estimated.
Ew.
And then and then the market, it was up in Joshua Tree. The market kind of tanked up there. It went from the hottest Airbnb market in the country to the most oversaturated Airbnb market in the country. So I just decided to exit, and I just decided I don't see how this could be a long-term thing, and it was going to be a long-term plan. So I ended up, I lost money on it, I definitely didn't make any money on it. And that was tough, and it still stings, because it's still kind of fresh, but.
That was fairly recent.
It's fairly fresh, yeah.
Wow.
Fairly fresh, yeah. And I learned a lot about that, about just knowing your numbers, cold.
Yeah.
Got to know your numbers, and I'm still learning that lesson in business. Everything from what I'm doing now with production media work, when you quote somebody something and you got to know your numbers.
I've learned that lesson already.
Yeah. And so that, but it was also just a lesson, and there's a lot of lessons learned there, but, also choosing the right partners.
Also very important.
Being willing to make some big moves faster. There's a million things I would have done differently, but, so it was an expensive lesson learned, but, I hope that I can carry some of those lessons into other areas.
Yeah. That's the least you could do, I guess, right? Because you could stick with it and be sour, stay sour.
Yeah.
Or you could be like, okay, well, this happened. Wasn't that great?
Yeah.
What can I learn from it so that maybe I don't get myself into a similar situation down the line?
And I heard this stat the other day. I'm part of the Irvine Chamber Business of Greater Irvine Chamber Business Commerce. Oh my God, what is it called?
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce. That's the word. Irvine Chamber of Commerce. And I've been a part of that for the last year or so, and it's been a good experience for networking and getting to know people. But somebody presented the other day and presented these facts around how many businesses fail within the first year. I don't remember the number. It was a lot, right? Most businesses fail.
Yeah, it's pretty high. I don't remember what percentage that's up there.
And then a good percentage of them fail within the 10 years, and then something only 2% of them succeed after 15 years. And I was just kind of and me and the other people who were in the room who were, business owners were kind of oh, okay, thanks a lot, buddy, for that presentation.
Thanks for that inspiring.
Yeah, but I left there, and I honestly don't know the answer to this, but I would like to know. I was like, well, that's a stat around businesses, which is based on data around, filings and different things like that, or but that's not a stat around entrepreneurs.
That's true.
And it made me, because I realized I was I haven't been in this game a super long time, but in this short amount of time, I've closed down 2 businesses.
Yeah.
I've started, one thing that was sort of an agency that made sense, but shut it down, restarted into something new that was similar. And then this failed kind of Airbnb venture, kind of 2 failed businesses in a short amount of time. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's right, businesses fail.
Yeah.
But that stat wasn't around the business owner. It wasn't around the entrepreneur. Correct. And I feel like a lot of people will have failed businesses but move on to something successful.
Right.
And so those stats are scary when you hear around failed businesses. But now I'm kind of in a space of like, oh, I can embrace that. Like, I got that out of the way.
It's part of the process, is what you're saying.
It's part of the process.
Yeah.
And I'm like, great. I got the failed percentage now
out of the way.
Yeah. So I want to be in that successful percentage, moving forward. And it's not necessarily the businesses, but it's the entrepreneur that can stick with it.
Exactly. It's more of the person rather than what happens around that. Because the person could always pivot, make changes,
totally
try something else.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And a good little nugget there. You reminded me actually that I've been I guess obviously not hard enough, but it was a great reminder that you brought up the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Anyone listening, that's a good piece of advice, right? If you can join your local Chamber of Commerce, because like you said, the networking opportunities, the people that you get in front of, and also just being more involved with the community, that puts you in a better position for people to find you at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, it's been a good experience for me, and it was when I specifically decided I wanted to launch Grow on Camera, and I had this desire to work with people locally, where I was just like, I am dying being on Zoom meetings. I am dying like only being virtual. I need to get out of my house and meet people.
Yeah,
that's kind of what my impetus was, and I didn't know where else to go, and I kind of was like researching networking groups, and I found that Chamber of Commerce. Every city has one, right? And I joined the Irvine one. I don't actually live in Irvine, but it was.
Oh, so you don't have to live in the city to join?
You don't.
What?
You don't,
bro?
No.
Enrique, we gotta join the Long Beach one.
You can join any Chamber of Commerce.
We're gonna join.
You can join multiple Chamber of Commerces. I don't know.
Houston, Texas.
Don't quote me on that. But yeah, I mean, I wanted to network with people, and it's a place just to go. And so I'm a part of like a leads group through the Chamber of Commerce, where we meet twice a month. It's a specific group, and it's exclusive to your category, meaning like there's nobody else that does media production in that room. So there's like a fitness guy, there's a tax accountant, there's
that's great.
A real estate guy, there's a mortgage person, there's someone that does massage, there's somebody that, so there's just like all these different categories.
Yeah.
And and in that group, you'll never have anybody else in your category.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you go to this group and you support each other and you help give each other leads and referrals, and you're never going to have somebody that's the same business as you. So all of a sudden I'm in this group where if you need somebody, I'm like, oh, I got a guy.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I've got a guy that does that. Because
Exactly.
I'm a part of this leads group.
Oh, that's
and the
amazing.
goal is we're trying to give each other business. We're trying to give each other referrals to grow our businesses. And I've definitely gotten work out of it. I've gotten referrals out of it. And it's been a good experience.
Man, I got to get on that then. Thank you for bringing it up on this episode.
And it was kind of this eye-opening experience for me of like, when I was like, how do people do this? How do people and I was like, oh, you have to get out of your house and go shake some hands and meet people. And even though I'm saying like, oh, digital media content, put yourself out there on social media, I actually feel like the dividends of meeting people in person and putting yourself out there are, there's a higher return on that.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any metric that can really measure it, but I completely agree, And at the end of the day, that's all business is. You're dealing with people, and their lives, their problems, and that's all business is. You're solving people's problems. So you have to be literally shaking hands.
Yeah, that's right.
So what do you say we move on now to the sweet story?
Okay.
The flip side.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you've had at least a few of those too since starting your businesses.
Yeah.
What would you say it has been one of the most just rewarding experiences or amazing moments that you've had since starting your business and or businesses?
Yeah. I think that I can speak to both, and I know it's maybe a little confusing because I've got kind of these different things going on, but with Grow on Camera, one of my clients, it was interesting. They wanted support in building out a digital media presence for their business. They were really had this business that was focused on SEO, and people would find them through Google search, but they really had no media, zero media. And they wanted just to build out that arm of their business. And the business owner had this goal of no paid media by 2025. He wanted all organic content. They had blog posts, they had all this SEO work going, but they wanted video content. So we sold them on building a YouTube channel with that idea that it's the second largest search engine in the world, right? And he would see that they would search within their niche, and there would be all these videos that would come up on the search, and none of them were him because he didn't have any content. So worked with him to build out a YouTube channel, and we've seen a lot of growth with that and some success with that. But one cool thing I liked was he asked me to like host it, and I was kind of like, okay, sure, I'll do that.
What type of business was this?
It's like a logistics shipping company.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so I hosted a bunch of the content for them. Became the face of their business. And what that led to though was like kind of a whole nother side thing that I'm doing, where I started just like hosting people's content for them.
That's interesting.
Because I know that
never thought of doing that.
Yeah, and it kind of just and it's like led to other pretty good business where like there's people who are like, oh, I want the content, but I don't want to be in it. Yeah. And it's funny because my whole thing was like helping people
be on camera.
Be on the camera. But it's kind of almost been easier to just be like, hey, actually, I could just do it for you.
Right.
And
right.
So that's just been like one of those cool, like unexpected turns that I never would have seen coming, where it's like more people have sought me out to host content for them and to be on camera, because I had a lot of experience reading off a teleprompter and kind of delivering content for a business. So I've done that for some SaaS companies, for some training companies, and a variety of different things since working with this client. So that was a win. That was sweet. That felt good. And I specifically liked it because we had a successful engagement with this client, but it kind of opened up just like this whole new world of possibilities for me that I liked.
And I like how you kind of just stumbled into that. Like you weren't really planning it, but because you were already doing something in that space, the opportunity arose, and now it sounds like it's something that you do more consistently, right? Yeah,
exactly, it is. And I will say one other thing, because I know we're more talking about growing camera, but with our training and culture development business, we had a client, Piatta Italian Street Food out of Columbus, Ohio. They have like 50 locations in more on the east and the Midwest. They're sort of like the Chipotle of Italian street food, right? They have an assembly style line. They're this company that was really rooted in hospitality and providing an excellent guest experience. Yet at post-COVID, they were at a place where their Net Promoter Score, their NPS, which is how they measure guest satisfaction, their NPS was hovering around 50, and they knew they wanted to improve it. They wanted to increase it, right? So they came to us to not just create content, but really create a training program and help develop hospitality standards for their brand to help solve this very specific problem. And so that was sweet because we like working with businesses that have a very clear, specific problem they're trying to solve through employee training and engagement. So what we did is we developed hospitality standards for the brand. We did that we had done this before, but we basically took the best of the best practices from across the industry, and we created a suite of hospitality standards. And then we built employee training that was like these engaging YouTube style videos that we call edutainment. So it was everything from, we had characters like Captain Obvious, and like Captain Obvious was fun in it because he would say stuff like, brush your teeth before you come to work. You know what I mean? Stuff that like,
it's like duh.
You gotta have to say, but you don't want the manager to have to say it. And so it's like, well, Captain Obvious will say it,
That's
and
great.
so we developed not just standards, but we developed an entire training program, training for the employee, training for the manager, that was all delivered in this like engaging digital format, and delivered it to this brand and rolled it out in a really systematic and strategic way. And then we saw over 6 months, we saw their NPS increase from around a 50 to around an 80. And this was 2 years ago. And I got a report from the guy last week that their NPS is still in the 80s 2 years later. And so to me, that is like,
That's a win.
Getting that 2 years later,
Yeah.
that our program that we built from scratch for this brand that had such a specific problem that was like huge.
Yeah.
If you're a brand, if you're a restaurant company and people are walking in your doors and giving you a 50%, that's a failing grade. You know what I mean? And so they needed to increase that. So what's sweet about it is that a lot of times when you take a course, whether it's at work or in your personal life, you might subscribe to the latest, Gary V training or whatever you subscribe to and watch their course, learn from them. But then for 2 years later, for that to be still having an impact on you and your business is huge.
Yeah.
And so for us to introduce this digital learning and then 2 years later still see that it's having this dramatic increase on their business, which means it's having an impact on their bottom line, was really sweet to see for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And also amazing testimonial I'm sure you'll get from, or you could use that as an amazing case study for other people who want something similar done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Second to last question here,
Okay,
man.
let's hear it.
If you had to choose your current life soundtrack,
Ooh.
what song would that be right now?
Current life, like a song,
Like
one
song.
One song for my current life. I think I saw you had mentioned this before.
For some reason, a lot of people get stumped on this question.
What's
the first song that came to mind?
Yeah. I think that the very first thing that came to mind was this. I'm gonna need a second. I don't know.
That's all good.
You're gonna have to edit
in
this.
the meantime, I've only had one guest ever that has told me that they don't really listen to music, and I was like, "How do you function in life?"
Yeah.
But hey, apparently there's people like that. I have to always have some sort of music in the background. Lately, I've been listening more to like Baroque classical music.
Oh, okay.
It seems to help me focus.
Yeah.
Which, actually, funny enough, now I'm making that connection right now. I used to listen to that a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
I just really enjoyed it for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean, if you had to choose though.
So I think maybe I hesitated because it's kind of a sad song.
That's okay.
It's kind of maybe I'm in a sad space of life. Right,
Yeah,
in this
and
moment.
it's a season of life.
It's a season of life, but it's also like, I'm of the age where I don't listen to new music. I kind of go back to the stuff that I listened to when I was young and just put it on repeat. So the song "Long December" by Counting Crows.
Okay.
Do you know this
I'm
song?
not familiar, no, but I'm definitely looking it up now.
Check it out. Play it. Let's play it. Can we roll the track?
Yeah, roll it.
That's been like.
What'd you say?
Long December by Counting Crows.
Long December.
That is the soundtrack to my life right now.
Okay.
A melancholy piano.
It sounds like a long drive
music.
type of song.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Like from here to Vegas long, or
maybe, I don't know about that long, but yeah, for some reason that's the song that came to my head.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to checking it out. Thank you for sharing that.
For sure.
Last question of the show, man.
Yeah.
Just to wrap things up here. Firstly, thanks again for taking the time to come on, for sharing some of your knowledge and nuggets with the audience. I'm hoping people really get something out of it. I know I have, and I'm going to be listening to this episode and seeing how I can apply certain things that you mentioned. But where can people continue following your journey, or if they even want to work with you, where can they find you online?
Yeah, the easiest place is probably through Instagram, Grow on Camera on Instagram, or growoncamera.com. Let's connect on Instagram at Grow on Camera.
There you go. Thank you for being on the show, like I said.
Yeah.
If anyone out there tuning in today got any value whatsoever, please consider subscribing to the show so we could have other amazing guests like Matt in other industries. At the end of the day, I think we could all learn from each other certain things from another industry that maybe you wouldn't think could apply to your business, but you're like, oh, I had never thought about that. Maybe I could modify it and do it this way over here. So that's why I enjoy having different business owners from different industries, different backgrounds. in your case, we're kind of in the same industry. You know, I'd say, we
absolutely.
are. I'd say we are.
Yeah.
But you know, we service different people. So
Yeah.
thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge with us.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, all I have to say is I hope you have a beautiful day.
This has been a Redbird Studio Productions. Hope you've enjoyed the program.